We think of comic book geniuses as guys who build suits in caves or solve crimes in a high-tech mansion. And by real-world standards, those guys are untouchable. But in the grand multiverse, that is barely level 1. Here are the 7 levels of comic book intelligence, explained. Level 1. The peak human polymaths. The primary subjects here are Batman, Lex Luthor, Nightwing, and Oracle. Level 1 is the ceiling of what an unmodified human brain can achieve, and these characters have hit that ceiling so hard, they have left a dent in it. Batman has mastered 127 martial arts, holds expertise in forensic science, chemistry, engineering, psychology, and criminology, and regularly outthinks villains who have literal superpowers. Lex Luthor built a Fortune 500 empire, engineered kryptonite-based weapons, and has repeatedly outwitted Superman, a god, using nothing but raw intellect and spite. Nightwing and Oracle operate similarly as elite tactical minds with photographic memories and mastery of information processing. But here is the key limitation. They are still human. Their brains run on neurons and electrochemical signals. They sleep. They forget. They have emotional blind spots. They can be concussed. No matter how disciplined the mind, biology is the ceiling, and at level 1, that ceiling is firmly in place. These are the kids who aced every exam without studying, but they are still taking the same test as everyone else. Level 2. The hypertech inventors. The primary subjects here are Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, Dr. Doom, and Hank Pym. Level 2 is where intelligence stops being about knowing things and starts being about building things that should not exist. Tony Stark built a functioning arc reactor, a miniaturized near-infinite energy source, inside a cave, with scraps, while injured.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
He later designed the Iron Legion, bleeding-edge armor with built-in AI and predictive combat systems that process thousands of threat variables per second. Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, has constructed a device called the Ultimate Nullifier, a weapon so catastrophic that even Galactus, a being who devours planets for sustenance, retreated from Earth rather than face it. He has also built machines that access the negative zone, bridges between dimensions, and has mapped the fundamental structure of the Marvel Universe. Dr. Doom deserves a mention here too, a man who combines sorcery and scientific genius at a level 2 floor, regularly pushing into level 3 territory. What separates level 2 from level 1 is not just intelligence quotient, it is application at scale. The paradigm shift here is that these are not people who solve problems. They create solutions that bend or outright break the accepted laws of physics, and they do it while also somehow finding time to have a personality crisis every third issue. Level 3. The Omniscient Biologies. The primary subjects here are Brainiac, the Leader, MODOK, and Karnak. At level 3, the brain itself has become something other than human. These are characters whose biological hardware has been fundamentally rewritten, either through mutation, alien evolution, or deliberate enhancement, turning them into living supercomputers. Brainiac, in his most powerful iterations, possesses a 12th level intellect. To contextualize that, the average civilization in the DC universe operates at a 6th level intellect. He has cataloged and miniaturized entire cities, stored thousands of civilizations inside databanks within his skull, and can process trillions of potential timelines simultaneously. He does not just think, he calculates futures the way you would run a Google search. The Leader, Bruce Banner's gamma-irradiated nemesis, possesses a brain that physically expanded upon mutation, his skull literally restructured to accommodate his enhanced processing power. He can memorize and analyze any piece of data in seconds and has demonstrated the ability to predict human behavior with algorithmic precision. The distinction at level 3 is biological transcendence. These characters are not smarter humans. Their neurons operate on a fundamentally different architecture. They have moved beyond the constraint of human brain chemistry entirely, but they are still, in some sense, physical beings bound to a single body. Level 4, the Cosmic Observers. The primary subjects here are the Watchers, Metron, and the Sphinx. Level 4 is where intelligence detaches from invention and becomes something closer to omniscience light. These entities do not build things to understand the universe. They simply know. The Watchers are among the oldest beings in the Marvel Universe, having observed the entirety of cosmic history since near the beginning of time. Uatu, the Watcher assigned to Earth, possesses knowledge of every event that has ever occurred, every possibility that has ever branched, every civilization that has ever risen and fallen. He is a living archive of the multiverse, and he is forbidden from acting on it, a deliberate narrative choice that makes him one of the most tragic figures in comics. Metron of the New Gods operates similarly, but with more agency. Armed with the Moebius chair, a device that provides access to all knowledge in the universe, Metron has traveled to the edges of reality, accessed the anti-life equation, and answered Batman's question about the Joker's true identity so definitively that Bruce Wayne was left visibly shaken. What did he learn? We still do not fully know. That is the kind of knowledge Level 4 deals in. The core trait here is passive omniscience. These beings hold knowledge rather than generate it. They are libraries, not laboratories. Level 5, the abstract intellects. The primary subjects here are the high evolutionary, the beyonder, molecule man, and eternity. At level 5, we are no longer talking about intelligence that processes information. We are talking about intelligence that comprehends creation itself, the fundamental mathematical and metaphysical equations that underpin existence. The high evolutionary began as a human geneticist named Herbert Wyndham, who was so far ahead of his time that even his colleagues could not follow his work. Through self-experimentation, he evolved himself to a point where he could create entire species, terraform planets, and eventually restructure his own consciousness to exist as pure thought. He built Counter-Earth, a second Earth on the opposite side of the sun, essentially as a science project. But the deeper Level 5 entities are the abstract ones. Eternity is the embodiment of the Marvel Universe, not a being in the universe, but the living concept of universal existence itself. Its intelligence is not measured in IQ points or processing speed. The reality is that it is the operating system. It comprehends every interaction of every particle across all of time because it is time and space in personified form. At level 5, the line between intelligence and reality manipulation becomes essentially indistinguishable. Level 6, the multiversal arbiters. The primary subjects here are the living tribunal, the fulcrum, and the endless. Level 6 is where the scale of intelligence becomes genuinely difficult for the human mind to conceptualize. These are not entities that think about the multiverse. These are entities whose consciousness spans the multiverse, processing infinite parallel realities simultaneously as a baseline function. The Living Tribunal is the most powerful adjudicative entity in Marvel Comics, a being of three faces representing equity, necessity, and just revenge, whose jurisdiction covers every universe, every timeline, and every dimensional plane that exists. When the Living Tribunal makes a judgment, it is not a decision reached through deliberation. It is an output of a mind so vast that it perceives the entire structure of multiversal law as a single, unified equation. To put it in scale terms, Thanos, with all 6 infinity gems, at the height of his power, having rendered half of all life in the universe dead with a thought, was still considered beneath the Living Tribunal's concern. The Tribunal exists on a tier so far above that the Infinity Gauntlet, the most powerful weapon in Marvel history, was essentially a novelty to it. These are minds that do not process decisions sequentially. They hold infinite variables, infinite timelines, infinite cause and effect chains in parallel, and render judgments that account for all of them at once. Level 7. The Absolute Omniscient. The primary subjects here are the One Above All, the Presence, and the Source. And here we are. Level 7. There is no framework adequate to describe what intelligence looks like at this level because these entities do not possess knowledge. They are knowledge. They are not beings that exist within reality and understand it. They are the authors of reality. The One Above All in Marvel and the Presence in DC are the in-universe stand-ins for the writers, the editors, and the creative forces that conceived of all the other levels we have just described. Their intelligence is not measurable because measurement itself is a concept that exists within the system they created. Asking how smart the One Above All is would be like asking how many pages long the author of a novel is. The question does not parse. The entity is not subject to the rules of the thing it authored. The one above all has appeared in physical form only rarely. Once, notably, as a homeless man speaking to a dying Peter Parker, offering comfort in a moment of grief. The implication being that limitless, absolute intelligence, when it chooses to interact with the mortal, does so not with power, but with presence, with empathy, which is perhaps the most quietly profound thing in all of comics. That the highest possible intelligence in its ultimate expression does not flex, it listens. 7 levels. From Batman memorizing a crime scene to a being that is the concept of existence itself. What is remarkable is that comics have been building this hierarchy for decades, not always consciously, but the internal logic holds. Each level is not just smarter, it is a fundamentally different kind of mind. So the next time someone calls Batman the smartest guy in the room, just remember, in the grand multiverse of comic book intelligence, he is still sitting in the lobby,